I put $10 million in my mom's safe. The next morning she disappeared and so did the money. But instead of panicking, I laughed. Why? Because what she took wasn't what she thought. This isn't just a story about betrayal, it's about the moment I stopped trusting blood and started trusting myself. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. You're not supposed to suspect your own mother. But that morning when I opened her safe and found it completely empty, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I laughed. Because I knew something she didn't. Let me rewind a little so you can understand how we got here. My name's Mackenzie, and a few months ago my life flipped upside down in the best possible way. After years of barely scraping by, living paycheck to paycheck, something finally worked in my favor. I made a risky investment in cryptocurrency 3 years ago. I watched it crash, rise, stall, and then, boom, explode beyond anything I ever expected. $10 million. All mine. No team. No managers. Just me, my laptop, and the long nights I spent learning while everyone else partied. But here's the thing, when you suddenly come into a fortune like that, people change. You change. The air around you feels heavier. Every friendly smile makes you wonder what they really want. I didn't want that life. So I kept it quiet. I didn't trust banks, too many regulations, too many people who could pull strings. I didn't trust digital vaults either. Hackers are smarter than we think. I needed something old school. Physical. But safe. And that's when I thought of her. My mom. She raised me on her own after my dad disappeared when I was a baby. Worked 3 jobs. Waitress during the day, cleaned offices at night, and did laundry for the neighbors on weekends just to keep the lights on. She never bought herself anything new. One winter when we couldn't afford 2 coats, she gave me hers and told everyone she hated the cold anyway. That's the kind of woman she was. Selfless. Tough. Resilient. So when it came time to hide the most important piece of my wealth, my cold wallet drive with access keys and the documents proving it was mine, I didn't go to a bank or a lockbox service. I went home. Mom had this old safe bolted into her closet floor. She never used it for anything more than passports and maybe some jewelry she hadn't worn in years. I asked her if I could use it for a few documents, important ones. She raised an eyebrow but didn't ask too many questions. She trusted me. And I trusted her. I tucked it all in there late one night when she was asleep, wrapped the cold wallet in bubble wrap, slid the papers in a folder, placed them gently inside and locked it shut. Then came the next morning. It was a regular Thursday. I woke up early, brewed my coffee, and walked into her room. She wasn't there. Weird. I knocked on the bathroom door. Nothing. Her purse was gone. Her coat too. Still, I didn't panic. Not until I opened the safe. Empty. First my body went still. Like the world pressed pause. The safe door hung open. Completely wide. Like someone didn't even bother hiding what they did. I stared at the hollow space where my future used to sit. And that's when I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because I already knew something she didn't. See, I've lived a lot of life in a short time. And one of the harshest lessons I've learned is this. Sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones who can hurt you the worst. So no, I didn't just blindly trust her. I tested her. The night I put the wallet in the safe, I didn't put the real one. I placed a decoy. A duplicate-looking USB, loaded with scrambled data. The documents? Completely fake. All designed to look convincing at a glance but useless if you tried to use them. And just in case, I slipped a small tracking chip, no bigger than a grain of rice, into the folder binding. Nothing high-tech. Just enough to lead me to wherever she ran. Now before you think I'm cold-hearted, understand this, I didn't do it because I wanted to trap my mother. I did it because I wanted to believe she wouldn't betray me. I hoped I'd come back to find that drive still sitting in the safe untouched. That she had respected my trust like she always taught me to respect others. But she didn't. She vanished. No note. No call. Just gone. A few hours later my tracker pinged. She was in a beach town 2 states away. Checked into a small motel under a fake name. Cash only. I got in my car and drove without stopping. When she opened the door, her face said it all. Shock. Guilt. Fear. She didn't even try to lie. She just broke down. Said she didn't know what came over her. Said she thought she could take the money, fix everything in her life, and maybe give me some back later. I listened. Not because I believed her, but because I needed closure. Then I pulled out the fake drive. You didn't steal money, I told her. You stole trust. And that's worth more than any dollar amount. I left her standing in the doorway, tears pouring down her face. I haven't spoken to her since. The real wallet? It's in a place only I know. Under my protection. Secure. Untouchable. And me? I'm moving forward. With fewer people around me. A tighter circle. And a sharper understanding of what trust really means. This story isn't about revenge. It's about seeing people clearly even when it hurts. If you've ever had someone close betray you, just know, you're not stupid. You're not weak. You're learning. And next time you'll be stronger. Just like I was. I'll never forget the feeling. It was like time froze. The air around me got so still I could hear the tiny hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen down the hall. I stood there, staring into the open safe, its door swung wide like a wound, empty. Hollow. A cold breeze slipped through the half-cracked window behind me, brushing across my arms like a ghost's whisper. I didn't move. My hands felt numb. My chest was heavy. Gone. Everything. The drive. The papers. The envelope I had tucked beneath the folders just in case. All of it. I called her immediately. Straight to voicemail. Tried again. Nothing. I walked down the hall to her room, my footsteps suddenly loud on the wooden floor. Her closet door was open. Half the hangers were empty. The small suitcase she kept at the bottom gone. Her bags gone. Her favorite necklace that she always said she'd pass down to me one day, not on the dresser anymore. Even her coffee cup, the one she used every morning for as long as I can remember, was still on the kitchen table. Half full. The steam had faded, but the scent lingered in the air. Bitter. Burnt. Forgotten. She'd left in a rush. At first I told myself stories. Maybe something happened. Maybe she had to leave urgently. Maybe there was an emergency. But even as I said those things to myself, over and over in my head like a chant, I knew. She took it. The same woman who once stood in front of the landlord and begged for one more week of rent. The woman who worked double shifts just to buy me a pair of shoes that wouldn't squeak when I walked into school. The woman who once cried when I offered her money from my first paycheck, saying I'd never take $1 from you unless I was starving. That woman just walked out of my life with $10 million. Or so she thought. Because what she didn't know, what she never thought to consider, is that I knew her better than she thought. Maybe even better than she knew herself. See, it's funny how people can change when money shows up. Especially when it arrives fast, unexpected, and overwhelming. It brings out truths you never saw coming. When I made my first million from crypto, I didn't even tell her. I told no one. I kept it quiet because I wasn't sure how people would react. It wasn't about showing off. It was about safety. About survival. Then came the second million. And the third. Until it became 10. $10 million sitting quietly in digital code. No headlines. No celebration. And suddenly I didn't know who I could trust. I remembered every time my mom told me that people will smile at your success while secretly hoping to take it. I remembered how she always warned me to stay sharp, stay private, stay careful. But I also remembered her past. The gambling phase she pretended never happened. The mysterious debt collectors who used to call late at night. The strange man who once showed up at our door asking about money she borrowed. She never thought I noticed. But I did. So when I decided to hide my cold wallet, the physical drive that held access to the majority of my fortune, I didn't pick a bank. Or vault. Or even a safety deposit box. I chose her safe. It felt poetic in a way. Circular. She'd spent her life protecting me. I figured it was time I trusted her with something important. Except, I didn't give her the real thing. What I placed in her safe was a replica. A lookalike drive. The documents? Dummy files. The access code? Useless. And inside the folder, tucked into the binding, was a small tracker, barely the size of a pencil tip. A test. I wanted to believe she would pass. I hoped that she'd see the sealed folder, feel the weight of my trust, and leave it alone. Maybe not even open it. Maybe ask me about it someday when she was ready. Instead, she stole it. She stole the illusion. And in doing so, gave me the truth. I sat down on the edge of the bed, her bed, and looked around. Her framed photos. Her old slippers. The faint scent of her perfume still hanging in the air. It should have hurt more than it did. But mostly it felt like confirmation. That the part of me that had hesitated had been right. I opened my laptop. launched the tracking app and waited. There it was. A small blinking dot. Moving. She was already 3 hours away. Southbound. Heading toward a coastal town we used to vacation in when I was a kid. She probably thought she was being clever. That she'd get there, find someone to sell the drive to, or figure out how to cash it in. I let her think that. Let her run. I didn't call the police. Didn't chase her. Not yet. 'Cause now, I had something even more valuable than money. I had clarity. Clarity about who she really was. About what love can sometimes disguise. About how betrayal doesn't always come with warning signs. But sometimes it does come with peace. Because when someone shows you who they really are, believe them. I didn't lose $10 million that day. I lost something else. And maybe that was the bigger theft all along. But the best part? The real wallet is safe. And this time so am I. See, what Mom didn't know was that I had planned for this. Maybe not this exact moment, but something close to it. I didn't grow up blind. I didn't grow up sheltered. My childhood wasn't some fairy tale filled with bedtime stories and warm cookies. It was a quiet education in watching what people do when no one is watching them. Especially my mom. She was always a survivor. I'll give her that. She clawed her way through life with scraped knees and raw knuckles. She worked harder than anyone I knew. And for years, I admired her grit. I really did. But survival comes with its own set of rules. And secrets. There was the gambling phase. I was 13 when I found a shoebox under her bed filled with betting slips, and cash she swore didn't exist. There was the boyfriend, one of many, but this one was worse. Controlling, charming in public, and cruel behind closed doors. I never told her I saw him take money from her purse more than once. I never told her I saw her let him. Then there were the debt collectors. The ones who used to call and ask for her by her maiden name. She always said it was a mix-up. But even as a kid, I knew it wasn't. There was a loan she never paid back, a favor she owed someone, a deal she was always trying to get around to. I kept all that in the back of my mind, filed away quietly. Not because I was planning revenge, but because I had to. Because some part of me knew that trust isn't just about love. It's about patterns. And hers were broken in ways I couldn't ignore anymore. So when I came into the money, life-changing money, I knew I had to be smart. $10 million doesn't just change your bank account. It changes the temperature of every room you walk into. It changes how people look at you, talk to you, reach for you. Even people you love. Especially them. So I kept it quiet. I didn't flash it. Didn't celebrate. Just moved in silence like I always had. But I had to store the cold wallet somewhere, my access point to all that crypto wealth. The keys, the identity codes, the legal documents attached to it all. And one night, after days of going back and forth, I decided to put it in Mom's safe. Because part of me still wanted to believe in her. In the version of her that raised me. The woman who stayed up late sewing buttons back onto my school uniform. The woman who used to sing along to old love songs while doing the dishes. Even when her eyes looked tired enough to collapse. So yeah, I put the wallet in her safe. But not the real one. What I placed in there was a decoy drive. Something I'd created myself. It looked identical. Right down to the label. But it was empty. Zero data. Useless. It was nothing more than a USB-shaped lie. And alongside it, tucked into the edge of the folder lining, I placed a tracker. Small, silent, and smart. No flashing lights. No sound. Just a quiet witness to whatever came next. Because I had to know. Not just if she'd betray me, but how. When I came back and found the safe empty, I didn't panic. I didn't even raise my voice. I stood there staring into that cold steel box with its hollow space and half-bent folder flaps. And then I laughed. I sat down in the middle of her living room, the one with the faded couch cushions and the old wooden coffee table we'd had since I was 8, and just laughed. Not the kind of laugh that comes from joy. The kind that escapes when a part of you breaks and something else sharp replaces it. Because in that moment I finally understood something I'd been avoiding for years. She didn't just take the drive. She took the last thread of belief I had in her. She chose greed over love. Lies over legacy. And she thought she'd gotten away with it. She thought she'd run off with the prize, $10 million in her hands, freedom in her eyes, and me left clueless and helpless. But what she took was worthless. And that changed everything. See, people like my mother don't plan for consequences. They act fast, fueled by desperation and instinct. They think no one's watching, that love makes you blind. But I wasn't blind. I never was. I watched. I remembered. And I prepared. As I sat there, the sun crept through the blinds and lit up the dust floating in the air. Everything was still. Quiet. But inside me? A storm. Not of anger. Not even betrayal. Of clarity. That morning I didn't lose money. I didn't lose security. I lost a version of my mother that never truly existed. And in that strange, still silence of an empty house, I finally understood that sometimes the people who shape us aren't meant to stay with us. They're chapters. Warnings. Lessons carved into memory. I stood up. Walked to the window. And for the first time in a long time I felt free. Because now I wasn't just protecting my money. I was protecting me. I tracked her to a seaside hotel 2 states over. A tired little place with peeling paint and salt stains on the windows. The kind of place where people go to disappear, quietly, cheaply, and without leaving a trail. She checked in under a fake name, paid in cash. Classic. But I wasn't surprised. The tracker I hid in the fake drive had led me straight to her. Every mile I drove, every town I passed, I thought about what I was going to say. Thought about whether I'd scream at her. Cry. Ask her why. Beg her to explain. But by the time I pulled into the parking lot and saw her beat-up red sedan in the back corner space, I realized something strange. I didn't feel rage. I didn't even feel sad. I felt ready. I walked up to her room and knocked. For a moment, nothing. Then the sound of movement. Hesitation. Footsteps approaching. I imagined her peeking through the peephole and seeing my face. The door cracked open slowly. When she saw me, her eyes widened. She looked awful. Pale, messy hair pulled back with no care. Her clothes were wrinkled. Hands trembling. And her voice? Barely a whisper. Mackenzie. Save it, I said, calm but sharp. My tone didn't shake. My eyes didn't blink. Her face collapsed instantly. Like the mask she'd been holding up finally shattered. She didn't even try to act like she didn't know why I was there. She just crumbled. Tears welled up fast and messy. She stumbled back into the room and dropped onto the edge of the bed, covering her face with both hands. I didn't mean to. I didn't. I just didn't know what else to do, she sobbed, words tumbling over each other. I was scared. I was drowning in debt. I thought, just for a second, I thought maybe I could fix everything. I was gonna bring it back. I swear, Mackenzie, I was going to return it. I stepped inside and shut the door quietly behind me. You were going to return $10 million? I asked. Not yelling. Just letting the words land. Like it was a jacket you borrowed? She couldn't even look at me. Her shoulders were shaking. You raised me to never lie, I continued. To never steal. I remember you making me return a bracelet I found at school because it wasn't mine. You made me apologize to a neighbor when I broke their fence by accident. You taught me to do the right thing even when it was hard. She nodded helplessly, still crying. I know I did. I messed up. I was desperate. Desperate. That word kept coming up. As if desperation was a free pass. You didn't even ask me, I said. You could have come to me. Told me the truth. Do you know what I would have done if you had? She finally looked up at me, her face red and swollen. Her eyes searched mine for softness, for any flicker of the daughter she used to know. But I didn't give her that. Not today. I would have helped you, I said, voice low. No hesitation. But you didn't trust me enough to ask. You trusted me enough to steal. She opened her mouth, probably to say, I'm sorry again. But I didn't want to hear it. I reached into my bag and pulled out the fake drive. Held it up between us like a mirror. This, I said, is worthless. She blinked, confused. It's not the real thing. It never was. You didn't steal $10 million. You stole a test. And you failed. Her mouth dropped slightly. Her eyes darted to the drive in my hand, then back to my face. I knew, I said. I knew who you were. I didn't want to believe it, but I did. So I gave you one last chance. Not to be perfect. Not to be heroic. Just to be honest. She sat there stunned. Silent now. There was nothing left to say. And honestly, I didn't need anything from her. Not answers. Not apologies. Not guilt. I got what I came for. Not revenge. Closure. I slipped the drive back into my bag, turned around, and walked to the door. I heard her whisper something behind me, maybe my name, maybe another sorry, but I didn't turn back. She could keep the room. The guilt. The silence. I was done. As I stepped outside, the salty ocean air hit me like a cold slap. But it felt clean. Honest. Real. I stood for a second, breathing it in, letting the weight fall off my shoulders. She didn't break me. She revealed herself. And that was the gift I never knew I needed. The truth. It didn't matter that she was my mother. Blood doesn't give you the right to betray someone's trust. Love doesn't mean enabling lies. And forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting the lesson. That day I walked away without looking back. And it was the lightest I'd felt in years. The fake drive stayed with me, a reminder. And the real fortune? Still safe. Still mine. But the real value? Knowing I could finally build a life without her shadow on my back. Free. Clear. And strong. So what was really in the safe? Hope. That's what I put in there. Not $10 million. Not cryptocurrency or gold bars or anything you could trade on a stock exchange. Just a hope, a small trembling hope, that the woman who raised me, the woman I once called my protector, still had the kind of heart I wanted to believe in. People think betrayal starts with action. A theft. A lie. A moment. But it doesn't. Betrayal starts with trust. It starts in silence, in the spaces where you want someone to do the right thing, even when every past experience says they won't. That safe wasn't just metal and bolts. It was my final act of faith. I knew her patterns. I knew her choices. I knew the way her survival instincts were stronger than her sense of right and wrong. And still, I gave her that chance. To be better. To choose love over desperation. To break the cycle. But she didn't. She opened that safe. Took what she thought was everything. And walked out of my life thinking she'd won. Thinking she had finally outsmarted the very person she raised. What she never understood, what she'll probably never understand, is that I wanted her to pass the test. I wanted to believe she could rise above the versions of herself she used to be. That's what hope is. Not certainty. Not control. Just the possibility of change. She crushed that possibility. And yet, the strange part? I didn't lose anything. I laugh now, not because it's funny, but because I see the irony. The same safe she opened with greed was the one I closed with love. The real drive, the actual key to my wealth, was never in there. It was locked away in a place only I knew about. Protected, untraceable, untouchable. She didn't take my money. She took my last piece of illusion. And for that, I'm grateful. Because once you stop clinging to the version of someone you wish existed, you make room for the truth. And truth? That's freedom. I walked away from that hotel without shouting. Without tears. Without burning bridges behind me. Because some bridges don't need fire, they collapse under their own weight. After that day, I left my hometown. It held too many shadows. Too many versions of myself that I had outgrown. I packed what I needed, took the real drive, and moved to a new city where no one knew my story, my name, or my past. Fresh air. New walls. New chances. I started my own company, not to prove anything to anyone, but because I finally felt free to build something for me. Not to make my mother proud. Not to silence the people who doubted me. But because I could. I kept my circle small. Intentional. No more open doors for people just because they shared DNA with me. No more confusing blood with loyalty. No more giving unearned access to people just because they played a role in my childhood. The friends I made were real. Earned. Chosen. The life I built wasn't loud. It was solid. Quiet. Peaceful. And the $10 million? Still mine. Still safe. Still untouched by betrayal. You know, people always say, family is everything. And maybe for some that's true. But what I learned the hard way is that some family are just people you happen to share a last name with. That doesn't make them honest. That doesn't make them safe. That's not bitterness. That's clarity. And clarity is a gift. One most people don't get until it's too late. So no, this story isn't about betrayal. Not really. It's about finally seeing someone for who they really are, not who you've built them up to be. It's about letting go, not with rage, but with peace. It's about choosing not to carry the pain forward. I don't wake up every day thinking about what she did. I don't relive it. I don't curse her name. I just let it stay where it belongs in the past. Because here's what I've learned, when you carry the weight of betrayal too long, it turns into armor. Heavy, cold, and clunky. And you start living like you're always preparing for war. But I didn't want that anymore. I wanted lightness. I wanted joy. I wanted to laugh again and mean it. And now? I do. I laugh at the irony. At how everything she thought she stole had no value while everything she lost, my trust, my love, my presence, was priceless. She'll never know that what I put in that safe wasn't wealth. It was a question. And her answer set me free. So if you've ever trusted the wrong person, if you've ever handed your heart, your secrets, or your hopes to someone who crushed them without a second thought, you're not alone. You're not stupid. You're not weak. You're human. And trust me, what's inside you, that resilience, that clarity, that power to move on, it's worth more than anything anyone could ever steal. Keep it safe. And don't be afraid to start over with stronger locks and higher walls. Because healing isn't about who hurt you. It's about who you become after. And me? I became free. If this story hit you in the heart, make sure to hit that like button, share with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that hit hard. This is Mackenzie, and I'm finally free.